is on official times. Time will be a little bit slower than we normally have. The official times have been changed this year. So we come to the straight. Fast, coming up to the 8th gear, 150-meter board, turn in, flick to the left, and apply the throttle coming down, straight down, into turn 3. Heavy braking zone into the apex. Short shift to get a better traction in the exit, and then flick left for turn 4. Turn 5 is almost invisible, but you just have to ignore it and go drive through it. And 6 and 7, very tricky corners, easy to invalidate on your lap time, as you can literally go wide by putting too much power coming up to turn 9 and turn 10, the clutch chicane. Very tricky corner. If you get too much curb, you might spin. Coming up to the fast little corner, it doesn't have a corner name actually, enough, and coming up to the impressive 11-12, flick left and then flick right to be able to get a good exit. It's very difficult, that corner. You need to actually time the flick left and right. Heavy braking down into 13, and 14 comes at you thick and fast. Coming up to 15, heavy braking zone, last heavy braking zone on the entire track. Coming up to the last corner, almost flat, take the curb in the exit, flying through, and we should do a 119.2. So that is a lap of Australia, and that is how you do it. Go on and look towards the setups. The general consensus around Australia has been the same actually. Looking at down the leaderboards, it's more or less been this similar setup style, and the wings haven't changed as much as last year. As I said, it's 4.8 wings, not bad. It's better for that stability to front and the rest stability in the rear. And it has high downforce. Australia generally is a high downforce track, and 4.8 wings seems to be about right. It was like that last year, so not much has changed. Differential again hasn't really changed much since last year. 50-60 differential, not changed as much as it used to be, but it's helped with the corner inputs, and it helped with the lift-off oversteer that you would normally get. Camber has changed a little bit. It's now right. It's kind of right, left, left, but the cambers have been knocked down a couple notches from top to bottom, and it has just only onto -2.6, -1. So has been more or less the same as last year, as left seems to be the stronger fairing, but it may change over time. As the time of this recording, this is what setups are like for now, but they will probably change. Actually, no, they will change over the course of the game's life cycle. Suspension, this is what I was talking about. The main changes have been in suspension area. Usually, the suspension from last year was, you would rather have it either mostly a soft suspension. The softer the suspension, technically the better the cornering on the car, which gave us a lot of better instability, but it helped with lap time if you could be able to manage the softer suspension. But this year they've kind of made the front suspension soft, but they made the rear suspension more firm, so it helps with, well, aggressive braking and sudden acceleration, as the actual tips have given you to. So, but yeah, the rear suspension now is quite important than ever to have that a bit more firmer, and the soft suspension a bit more softer. So it's like 1/8 suspension in this case, but the point of it is actually just so you can actually have a bit more of confidence in the braking, and that's kind of what the suspension has done to the brakes as well. The braking has changed a lot to the point where the suspension now has to change. And the anti-roll bars have been raised a lot to 9.9 in this case at the time of this setup, and 3.4 is the right height. So again, the setups have been more or less the same up until the suspension point of view, where it has changed until we get to the right height, where that has not changed. The right height has been more or less the same. 3.4 right height is about what we've had before, but the anti-roll bar has slightly changed, as it used to be a soft anti-roll bar at the front and a firm anti-roll bar at the rear. So they've kind of mixed and matched the suspension side and made it a little bit more realistic, but it's still a long way off what you would get from like a sim, let's be honest. But still, it's still relatively strong, and it's actually good for the cornering. Brake pressure is fully maxed 100% nowadays. They have changed the brakes. The braking feeling feels a bit more numb as it used to be from last year. Last year it was a bit more sharper. This time it's a bit more looser. It feels a bit more numb. Like you don't get that same feeling as you used to. So that requires you to brake a lot later, and not as early as you may think. If you brake a lot later, it helps with lap time, and the car just feels like it's just flowing a lot more. So the brakes feel a little bit, a lot more better actually, and it's given more response into the corners when you're turning in. When you're slowing down, it's more easier, and that's 100% pressure for you. The brake bias, you could choose whatever you want. To be honest, I have it normally at 53, but in this case, we can have it at 50. It doesn't really matter. It's just personal preference. I just prefer a little bit more to the front, just so I can have that little bit of extra front braking, extra front turning. I do like a little bit more of a pointy car, and that helps with the bias in the front. Then you've got your tire pressures. The tire pressures is also another big change, where the tire pressures now are all very low. You'll tend to see very low tire pressures for time trial, and it also helps actually in the races as well with better tire wear. As my voice breaks, better tire wear at the flow with lower tire pressures, and you can be able to manage the manage your tire life with these low tire pressures, and it also helps with time trial times because it actually loads up the car, gives you more grip with an increase of tire grip. But yeah, the cost of a slower car on the straight. But in this track, straights aren't really a big key factor around here, and you can probably get away with it here. And that is pretty much the setup for this.